Hello everyone, my name is Peter Chai. Please first allow me to introduce myself a little bit. I graduated from the School of Political Science and Economics this year, and right now I'm a first-year graduate student at the Graduate School of Political Science. I participated in Professor Willie Zhou's advanced seminars, and right now I'm researching under the supervision of Professor Willie Zhou. It is my honor to be here today to share about my research topic. Okay, let's get started. My topic is studying post-materialist values in the Greater China area through survey data. More specifically, I would like to test empirically the relationships between post-materialism and some other social indicators. Before talking about my research methodology, I would like to elaborate a little bit on my research background. The first general question that I want to tackle is, what are values? On the left-hand side of the slide, you may recognize this is Max Weber. He's a great German sociologist who talked about how human values change after industrialization. More precisely, he talked about the process of disenchantment. People start to live and work in different places, and they have chances to travel to other countries. With the help of transportation processes, people extend their ties to other social areas beyond their families and friends. And with the advent of science, religions start to play different roles in people's lives and mean different things. In other words, people have access to a wider world. They have more ways for socialization. The human beings have come a long way, from Renaissance to the Age of Discovery, to Scottish Enlightenment, and to the French Revolution. It is probably easy to imagine that people's minds and values have changed a lot, reflected in their behavior, reflected in their perception toward the world and the people around them. However, it was quite difficult for philosophers in the past to track the changes in people's values over time, or to compare values across regions and continents. Therefore, the audience might ask, are values actually quantifiable and approachable by research? As you can see on the left-hand side of the slide, this is Ronald Inglehart. He was affiliated to the University of Michigan. He passed away this year, but he left a great legacy to contemporary researchers. Namely, he used survey data to construct a transformation from materialist to post-materialist values. And he argued that this transformation was a general trend in the Western world. Please let me explain a little bit more about this post-materialist thesis. According to Ronald Inglehart, in the past, people placed their priorities in survival values. They cared a lot about the physiological and safety needs, such as food, shelter, stable family, and money. However, in the recent decades, the world accumulates more wealth and people get richer. People start to shift from their survival values to self-expression values. By self-expression values, I mean that people start to care more about the quality of life and the potential for self-actualization. This transformation of needs can be demonstrated in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs as indicated on the right-hand side of the slide. At the bottom level is the physiological and survival needs, and at the top of the pyramid, it is the self-actualization and self-expression needs. As you can see, Ronald Inglehart's theoretical underpinning is actually from a psychological basis. Therefore, with the help of modernization, industrialization, and a range of socioeconomic developments, people start to have more control over their own destinies and quality of life. In the past, people formulated responsive strategies to cope with their survival, but right now, people started to pursue their own goals and life plans. After talking about what post-materialist values are from a philosophical point of view, some people might start asking, what specific issues are post-materialists targeting at? Well, I listed 4 examples on the slide. The first one is gender equality, the second one is environmentalism, the third one is minority rights, and the last one is cosmopolitanism. These kind of topics are also driving the new left politics and the transformation of the party cleavages. For those who study political philosophy, some of the new left topics, they reflect some principles in John Stuart Mill's on liberty, such as gender equality and minority rights. For example, in the case of Brexit in Britain, the immigration and refugee problem was a key in the agenda setting. And in the presidential election of Donald Trump, there was a clash or division in the understanding of such issues. As you can see, for these topics, there is a tendency toward more self-autonomy over obedience. In order to quantitatively demonstrate this general trend toward post-materialism, Ronald Inglehart utilized survey data to construct those scatter plots. In his book Modernization and Postmodernization, you can see two important graphs. I've copied and pasted them here. For the graph on the left, you can see the x-axis is the rate of economic growth. And for the graph on the right, the x-axis is the economic level. The two graphs show that economic level and economic growth, they have a positive correlation with the percentage of post-materialist values in the population of certain countries. And they contribute to generational value gaps. In ordinary language, I can say that when a society grows really fast economically, it also indicates that the society has a huge gap between older generation and younger generation in terms of post-materialist values. In the two scatter plots, you can see a general upward trend. However, there are also some outliers. For example, for Turkey and Mexico, even though their GNP per capita is low, they still have a high percentage of post-materialist value holders. In the case of Japan, even though it has a high GNP per capita, it still has a relatively low percentage of post-materialism. While these two graphs show the comparison between different countries in the West, what about within countries? In his book, Ronald Inglehart gives an example of Spain. As you can see on the scatter plot, different regions in Spain, they show a similar trend as in the previous slide. Richer regions demonstrate more percentage of post-materialist value holders. However, I want to find out whether this mechanism is similar in China as well. Compared to the research in the United States and Western Europe, there is not as much research targeting at post-materialism in the Greater China area. According to the literature review that I've been doing on the Greater China area, I find out that the current researchers do not find a consistent relationship between post-materialist values and economic values in China. In other words, they do not find that richer provinces in China exhibit a higher percentage of post-materialist value holders. They also do not find higher income populations exhibit higher conformity and agreement to post-materialist values. In some cases, contrasting relationships are found in different research listed here. As a result, I'm really curious to replicate such research and to actually find out whether Inglehart's thesis is compatible with the social environment and context in China. Now I will move on to talk about my research methodology and data collection. I would like to introduce two transnational databases for survey research. The first one is the World Value Survey, or in short, WVS. It was founded and led by a range of researchers in political science, including Ronald Inglehart, and it has different divisions in different countries. The primary objective of the World Value Survey is to use a specific set of questions in different topics to compare the values of people around the world. However, one potential problem with this approach is that people in different regions might interpret and understand the same question in a slightly different way. Therefore, when we look at the values in East Asia, there is another substitute to the World Value Survey, which is the Asian Barometer run by the Hufu Center for East Asia Democratic Studies, associated with Taiwan National University. The design of the questionnaire components specifically targets at responses from East Asian populations. So some people might say the Asian Barometer is a little bit more valid in terms of generating responses inside the Asian cultural setting. I put on the slide the screenshot of the master questionnaire of the 7th wave of the World Value Survey. As you can see on the right, there is a specific section called Post-Materiality Index in the master questionnaire. As you can see, under this section, some questions about personal liberty, political participation, social capital are included. With the help of those questions, when we aggregate everything together, we can find out what type of a world the respondent would like to live. Here, I put the core questionnaire of the 4th wave of the Asian Barometer. As you can see on the right, there is a section titled Traditionalism, and it is closely related to the topic of post-materialism. From my perspective, a unique characteristic of the traditionalism section is that it doesn't ask really general and big questions about economics and public policy. Instead, it asks questions about the relationships between children and their parents, and students and their teachers. For example, they ask the respondents whether they prioritize their personal interest over their family interest, and whether students should always obey their teachers, no matter whether they are wrong or not. They also asked within a group whether members should always behave according to its convention, and whether no personal input is important. They also asked, when you encounter a conflict with other people, do you try to hide away and avoid the conflict, or do you try to reason with your own opinion and confront it? These questions are not about politics and economics specifically, but they are about daily life and daily decision making. Therefore, I believe that they have a chance of reflecting what people actually think about themselves and their environments. So my future plan is to further evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of the WVS and the Asian barometer, and to find out whether a combination of usage of the two different questionnaires are possible. I believe that at least in China, where there is no established norm of political participation, people tend to understand those daily questions better. Apart from the previously mentioned two different surveys, there is another domestic survey in China called CGSS, the Chinese General Social Survey. However, I don't actually intend to use it because some people say that it is somehow liable to political influence. And also, it doesn't have a wide public access. Due to the time restraint, I will only be briefly talking about my research question and research setup. My general research question is that, do post-materialist values correlate with economic prosperities, and do past economic growth imply the corresponding sizes of generational value gaps? In order to achieve this objective, I will do two things. First, I will run regressions between provincial and regional economic data with post-materialist values data. And secondly, I will also collect information on demographics, such as gender, income, and social class, and to see whether there are some tangible differences between those different social segments. To make my research more meaningful, I will also try to compare between mainland China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. And I want to find out whether Taiwan and Hong Kong have a higher percentage of post-materialist values compared to regions and provinces in China, which has similar income levels. And if possible, I would also like to extend my logic to compare between the Greater China area to Japan and South Korea. Although this cross-national comparison is currently beyond my ability. Here, I listed some expected results from my research. First, I expect a weak correlation across regions and provinces in mainland China. And also, I expect inconsistent generational value gaps between mainland China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. And finally, I expect stronger correlations in Japan and South Korea compared to the general Greater China area. In other words, Ronald Inglehert's post-materialist thesis might play a better role in Japan and South Korea compared to mainland China. Well, the last question is, how do we explain the weak association between economic growth and post-materialist values? One line of explanation is cultural relativism, which means that China has a deep history of Confucianism in its past development. And the Confucian philosophy actually hold the post-materialism back and emphasize more on collectivism and groupism. Another way of explanation is the rapid socioeconomic development and the large and wide income inequalities across China, which make post-materialist values really uneven. And some people might resort to the explanations of policy and regime implications, especially the roles that the central authority has played in limiting media freedom and political participation. I believe the three different lines of explanations have their own values. And in the future, when I actually start to do data analytics, I hope to see how those different explanations might explain my results. Thank you very much for listening, and my research proposal is only tentative, so that I will make adjustments and modifications when I see necessary. And I welcome all the comments, criticism, and advice from my research. So please contact me if you would like to discuss about my research. And I would like to express my sincerest gratitude to Professor Willie Zhou for offering this really valuable chance to speak in front of the students in the course of the Comparative Politics of East Asia. And I hope you guys enjoy this course.